weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. Well, hopefully this one goes well, and it's not going to go straight into the bin. It's Konstantin here, and here is...
This is Becky.
All right. Well, the main news, well, they weren't really main news this week. They don't announce Z9 very often. It only happens once normally, isn't it?
Yeah.
But according to Nikon Rumors, we will see new Nikon product announcements coming soon.
We will. According to the latest rumors, we are going to see 4 new lenses, including the new Z macro lens or lenses, a possibly pancake lens, and potentially an APS-C.
APS-C camera.
Oh, camera.
DX. They call it DX, they don't call it APS-C.
No.
You're not working for Canon, Becky.
Sorry.
Should have known better.
You know, thanks.
But I think the other 2 lenses, potentially, could be the 2 long lenses that we hopefully will see the prototypes at July Olympics in Tokyo.
Are we thinking the primes or the zooms here?
I'm thinking primes. I'm thinking 600 and 400 zooms.
That'll be very interesting.
You see, because I thought if they release that 30, which is APS-C technically, or DX as Nikon calls it, then they could potentially release some sort of 18 to 55 lens for Z30. And then I thought, well, there is one that's called 16 to 50, and it's already available with Z50.
Already exists. We don't need another plastic mounted lens. I think in that range, it would be nicer to have more higher level DX lenses if they are going to bring out another DX lens.
Yeah, we've seen some prototypes last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we talked about those. And then I think for the Z30, the 16 to 50 is cheap and cheerful enough that they could put it in that kit if they're going to do that. So.
And yeah, and then you have 55 to 200 to complete the range, isn't it?
That's right. It's a 50 to 250 actually, but anyway. Going back a little while.
I know my things. You know, I know anything DX. Ask me anything.
I know my things.
Because I extensively use DX lenses and cameras.
You do.
When I dream, while I sleep.
Yes. I'll tell you why I was confused by this announcement or this potential announcement, because they said 4 new lenses. Now there are 2 pancakes and 2 macro lenses on the lineup. So if we are going to see the long lenses, then hopefully we'll only get 1 of each of the other.
I think so. I think it would be a bit too rich for Nikon to release 2 pancakes and 2 macro lenses at the same time.
Exactly, particularly when we've got so much of the longer end still waiting. Now, do you think it's going to be the 50 or the 105 in the macro? Which
one do you want the most?
Personally, I personally want the 105, but saying that, but just because there isn't a 105 already, the 50 is the one that I imagine will work with the slide copying adapter.
With the S2, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So I think for those who are looking to copy slides, the 50, and also price point wise, I think the 50 is going to be more obtainable.
Yeah, but it would be nice though to release 105 because we technically have 51.8. So while it's not a macro lens, it's a 50 lens.
And we've got a 50 1.2.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got the 58 0.95.
Exactly. So I think there's enough 50s to keep us occupied.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, you mentioned there's 2. I think that's potentially would be it. But, you know, it's nice weather outside, so 105 probably would be better. 105
would be great, and it would double up nicely as a portrait lens.
That's true.
Now, in terms of the pancakes, we have, if I'm not mistaken, we have a 28 and a 40 on there. So of those 2, they both look to be about the same size. Neither of them, according to that image, look like they're as small as the 16 to 50 DX, which is a tiny, almost pancake style lens. They look a little bit shorter than the 24 to 50 though.
But you know, the 16 to 50 and 24 to 50, those are in their collapsed mode.
Yes, that's true.
You know, so once you open them up, they actually will be bigger.
Yeah.
Now, I personally want to get 28.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah, they don't have 28 already,
no.
so that would be then it's a good street light documentary lens as well. And 40 again is too close to 50, which we have plenty of at the moment.
Yes. So you heard it here first. We hope it's going to be the 105 macro, the 28 pancake, and then the 400mm and the 600mm. Those would be great additions.
That sounds like a good lineup of lenses, isn't it?
Place your bets now.
Perfect. Well, that's all good news for this week.
Now it's just bad news.
No, now it's just rumors really, because apparently there've been rumors that Nikon discontinued 500mm f 5.6 PF lens. Now, I don't think this is the case.
No, but we will show the evidence of why we believe or why we've heard that this is the case. This is actually an email that was shared with Nikon Rumours where someone, the name has been blocked out, from Nikon Europe service support has said the information provided by my colleague is absolutely correct. The AFS NIKKOR 500 5.6 EPF EDVR has been discontinued. However, you may check our authorized dealer network to find a supplier who may have stock of this product. Okay, so I would just like to say something on this subject matter.
Okay.
I have had it a couple of times where I've been in contact with someone from Nikon, lovely staff that they have at Nikon, and I have said, I'm looking for. This happened quite recently with I think it was a 500mm lens. I say recently, it happened in the last 12 months. I was looking for the 500 f4e VR. And we had this whole correspondence back and forth, and suddenly there was this, but the 500's been discontinued. Anyway, the long and the short of it was that they were talking about the G version, which has been discontinued for a number of years, and we were talking about the E version, which obviously hasn't been discontinued and is still a current lens. But I think that sometimes there can be misunderstandings. So obviously they very clearly put in that email 500 f5.6 PF VR, but there is a likelihood that the person is wrong.
Yeah, shall we point fingers?
But it's just interesting that, because I don't understand why they would discontinue that.
No, it's one of the best-selling lenses, and again, it's a position at such a good price point.
Completely.
Because if you look at 500 f4, that's close to £10,000, isn't it?
It's 8,990 or something.
£9,000, still quite a lot for a lot of people.
Yes.
I can't imagine £9,000 just on the table. Yeah. £150 I can, yeah, but not £9,000. So if you think about it, it's such a good lens. It has awesome reviews, really good feedback by customers. It's been out of stock for quite some time when it was first released.
Yes.
They were coming in small drips, and there was quite a huge back order on them. So I don't really see the reason why they would discontinue this lens in particular.
No, I don't either, and I do hope that is not the case, particularly because you know me, I'm quite a big fan of that lens. I don't use long lenses very often, but when I do, it's a 500 PF.
It's a £3,500 lens.
Of course. Nothing but the best.
When I drive,
it's always a Ferrari.
Or Lambo. But if you think about it, and of course, the lens has been out of stock since January. And I guess that's to do with things like COVID.
we have to mention it at least once a week.
Or lockdown, or other things.
Yeah.
But not discontinued.
No.
All right. The things that have been postponed, not discontinued, but postponed, are a couple of accessories. AS15 and MH66 orders have been stopped due to production issues, and that's Nikon confirmed themselves. So they basically said, due to current situation, current environment, we having troubles manufacturing those. We will resume the orders, so from Nikon to dealers, as soon as possible. So they hope to improve on that, but at the moment they're not available to order, for dealers. Effectively.
So just for anyone who's wondering what that is, the AS15 is a hot shoe adapter, which allows you to have a flash sync socket on a camera that doesn't normally have a flash sync socket. And the MH66 is a charger. Do you remember what it's for?
For a camera. And that answers this question. Now, we're going to jump this news and we're going to go to, since we mentioned COVID, Japan announced the end of COVID-19 emergency in the 3 prefectures of Tokyo on March 21st. So they effectively said, we ended lockdown in those areas. Now, Nikon updated their response to COVID statements while they stating that the Nikon group will need to go to the manufacturing site for the time being from March 22nd while adhering to the previous policy of continuing business activities while preventing the spread of infection. We will review some of the measures, such as reducing the number of employees who come to work to 50% or less, and setting the upper limit of working from home to 4 days a week. So effectively, they're easing restrictions for their employees. So hopefully that should improve some of production that's happening in Japan.
Yes.
In those factories.
Exactly. And we might start to see stock moving in our direction very soon. And now for some not so exciting news. Nikon have been laying off Nikon Pro Services staff in the USA and Canada. The report says Nikon laid off most of NPS this week, as well as people in the marketing department, combined with some forced retirements. More than half of NPS is gone, leaving only 5 staff in the field, as opposed to 14 2 years ago. There is a comment under this article where Eric Bowles writes, Canon restructured their professional services group about 2 to 3 years ago with a bunch of layoffs. Historically, a lot of their time was spent attending major events and providing setup and service. These events are things like the Olympics, Super Bowl, World Cup, World Series, etc. It also included a presence at major trade shows. Canon cut back or dropped all that support. You have 2 major factors. One is the reduction of these events related to COVID, which hopefully we're going to see the end of at some point, you know, before we all retire.
Yeah, it's a bit strange because it's happening now while we technically starting to come out.
Yeah, although obviously there are countries where the situation is different, but anyway.
I agree.
And it's different from state to state in the US. The number of photographers covering these events has been reduced. That's also true. But longer term, it's related to cost and benefit. It was extremely expensive to provide that level of service without compensation. Also, the wire service industry is changing in general, and Sony just picked up a contract with Getty that reduces volume, which is an interesting point, because if agencies, let's say if Getty is becoming the agency where all images are going through, and then Sony has just picked up a contract with them, that means that other Getty photographers may lose that otherwise quite profitable work.
Yeah, so effectively what they say is you don't really need that much technical support to these people.
No, exactly. It goes on to say, I suspect Nikon's change in NPS to a free/fee paid service with tiered participation levels is linked to this change in cost structure and part of an overall plan to reduce overhead and support required for NPS, and to turn it into something that has a much lower net cost. This is not just a short-term decision, it's part of a much larger strategy to reduce costs and make sure the company is profitable. So, what do we think, Con?
Yeah, that's where it rubs me the wrong way. So they've restructured the NPS last month in the United States, where you have 3 paid, 1 free and 2 paid tiers.
Yes.
So that includes service and equipment such as sensor cleans and also loans.
Yes.
Now you do that, and then you lay off your NPS support.
Yeah, and I can imagine, just from a behind the scenes viewpoint, having 5 people, because some of those paid tiers, if you remember, you have your own personal NPS representative that you go to, and they're your point of contact in NPS. If there are only 5 staff and they have to look after a number of professionals in that fashion, where you can essentially pick up the phone and call someone, you know, my mate Joe, at any time, then that's going to be an issue in terms of the amount of workload on those guys' lines. So I do think that is stressful for them. Hopefully they're going to be paid more. Let's put it that way. That's the only thing that I can think of. If they've reduced the workforce from 14 down to 5, I hope that those 5 people are getting, you know, remunerated in a way that they should be.
But can they cope with the amount of, you know, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, especially let's say, okay, well, we still in COVID, okay, we're not sure if it's going to be another lockdown or not. But
let's just say no for now.
At the moment, I wouldn't say it's a, you know, I wouldn't want it to be a long-term decision, because if you think about it, okay, we don't have any events right now. We're slowly starting to come out of lockdown, but of course the situation may change. So I understand this, but at the same time, you need to have a really good and strong, you know, a support department.
Absolutely, particularly if you're expecting professionals to continue to buy and upgrade, then in order to kind of support your product, you need a team of staff that know what they're talking about.
Yes, especially with Nikon Z9 release, which is specifically aimed at pro crowd.
Yeah.
You want to have this level of confidence from pro photographers that they can rely on Nikon in a difficult situation.
For sure, absolutely.
And introducing the paid tiers and reducing the staff just doesn't play well with me in a way.
No, I can understand that. I mean, as we are experienced in this kind of field where we have to provide service, and sometimes very personal service, one-on-one to photographers who are working, who aren't NPS members, but say are Nikon owner subscribers or similar, we know from personal experience how much work it takes to look after just one individual photographer, particularly a professional that's working in their field constantly. It's very difficult to do with a reduced team. And when you've got a few hundred photographers that you're looking after, it's challenging. Yeah. So I can only hope that there is some logic that we will understand further down the line.
My hope with the Nikon continues increase in share in mirrorless market, that Nikon will revise their decision. And we'll get more people in later on. So especially with the, around the time where Z9 is going to be released.
Yeah.
And also I have Tom Hogan's article where he touches the same issue. He basically says that a lot of photographic companies, while introducing those paid tiers, wants to get more but provide less.
Right.
He also said this is not just a Nikon problem, it's a Canon, Fujifilm, OEM Digital Solutions, Panasonic, and Sony problem too. I've seen variations lately on the staff winnowing and restructuring from all of them. Quite frankly, a few extra $1 million put into the proper, well-managed, and carefully amplified customer communication and support would stand out like a sore thumb in today's camera market and be incredibly well received to the point of boosting sales. Again, if we talk that the service is good, the technical support is good, people will come back to it, people will share this.
Yes.
A lot of those things happening by word of mouth.
Yes.
If you like something, if you like someone's service, you come back and you're happy to basically share it with everyone. This is basically free advertising.
Yeah.
So putting the money by, increasing your support team would be a good choice. As bad as things have been, we are still talking about 6.2 billion, that's billion overall global market in 2020. And this will likely to grow in 2021 if the pandemic dies down as expected. So this is the market we have. It will increase in the future.
Yeah. Put a little bit of money and effort into
it. Exactly. I think that we should think ahead. And while yes, DSLRs are shrinking and we're trying to get pro photographers into Z series cameras, it's worth having a good technical support.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Con. Mobile operator in Japan, Softbank and Nikon succeeded in demonstrating tracking optical wireless communication technology, capable of 360-degree tracking for the first time in the world.
Wow.
So what does that mean in a nutshell?
The reason why I say wow, because I can't understand the word you said. What I've read, they say it's beyond 6G, and what they did is they managed to transfer the data at 100 meters distance at 100 megabits per second.
Okay.
So which is very, very fast. And they say we've succeeded in doing so.
So we've got essentially robots and AI.
And 6G, beyond it. So 7G, I assume.
So the future is now.
Absolutely.
Thanks to science. That's from Pokemon.
And here we go. Nikon Report 15, the Pokemon edition.
The future is now thanks to science. That's the title of our next podcast. Ding, ding, ding.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Speaking of other news, Nikon introduced their microfocus X-ray CT computed tomography system, which is called XTH225ST 2 times.
Nice. That just rolls off
the tongue. What it is, it's effectively an X-ray, but not for people, for the machines. So they can scan the device and they can see the basically semiconductors and chips inside other semiconductors and chips.
Nice. And
see the temperature and see if they're doing well, if the heart is beating okay, and the pressure is all right.
Excellent.
The new innovative features drive double the productivity and enhance inspection compared to previous models. It's all Japanese Google Translate. Two of the features are not to be found on any other industrial CT system, which is computed tomography.
Computed tomography.
One is rotating target 2.0. Well, we all know that 2.0 is better than 1.0.
Always.
And another one is called half-turn CT, which is better than quarter-turn CT. This is available from March 16, 2021. So if you'd like one, you can order it directly from Nikon.
There you go. All right, we have an update for Nikon KeyMission 360, a firmware update version 1.6. They fixed an issue that prevented pairing between the camera and devices running SnapBridge 360 170 app under iOS and iPad iOS.
So they're improving Wi-Fi across the board, isn't it? I think iOS 14 broke basically communication from a lot of cameras, not just Nikon ones.
No.
So I saw Fuji and Canon issuing updates as well, Panasonic as well. So I think, yeah, they're finally starting to find the ways to communicate. Okay, well, let's move on to point of discussion section.
Yeah.
So with Nikon officially stating that they will focus on keen hobbyist and high professional crowd with low volume output and high margin productions, let's have a look at Nikon Z lineup, their potential price points. Let's have a look what they need to add. What do we think they will add, and what the prices will be like?
Okay, so at the moment, we have how many DSLRs?
So we have effectively 8 DSLRs in pipeline, and it's technically 9 because D600 has its own range, which is basically under £1,000 DSLR. Okay. It's now effectively been replaced by D750.
Yes.
More or less.
More or less, yeah.
So at the moment, yes, there are 8 cameras in the F-mount range. And there are 4 cameras in Z lineup.
Well, you mean in terms of tiers, because we've got the Z50, the Z5, Z6, 6.2, 7.2.
Yeah, I don't call Z6.2 and Z6.1 as as 2 different models.
Okay.
So I would still call them as kind of, if you look at the lineup where they're positioned. So I would say, yeah, we have Z50, which is effectively equivalent of D7500 at the moment. Then we've got Z5, which is kind of under £1,000 camera, hopefully at some point.
It's the entry level full frame.
Yes.
Mirrorless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then we have Z7, which is effectively a 780 D850 replacement. So again, I don't think it's a direct D850 replacement. Some people think it is. Some people think, I personally think that Z8 would be direct replacement of D850.
Yeah.
So those cameras that are out already, yeah. So what do they need to add?
So we need something in the entry level for sure, because the Z50 at its current positioning being closer to the D7500 at around or just under £800, doesn't allow for any entrance point into the Z system for people that are coming into Nikon for the first time or stepping over from D3000, 5000 series. That's our much anticipated Z30.
So Z30, and if let's say D3500 currently be had, if you can find the stock under £400, I think Z30 when it comes out will be around under £500. I don't think that Nikon will, the price will trickle down eventually to a low price point, but I think at this point, yeah, we'll have about kit with 650 lens about £500. Now Nikon has a D5600.
Yes.
Now, do you think they will have something like this? Does it make sense for them to release something like Z40 to go into this space?
In my head, no. I think that the Z50 is the perfect jump from something like a Z30. It's got the 4K video and the additional bits and pieces that you would probably need. I don't really see, even now, the difference between the 3500 and the 5600 is really just the vertical flippy dippy screen, as I call it. That is the primary difference. Also, you've got things like a headphone jack and the ability to use a cable release, believe it or not. That's in the D5600, which isn't available in the D3500.
So you think Z30 will be basically D3500 and D5600 merged together?
Smushed, yes.
Yeah, so with all the best bits from 5600 and probably low price point of D3500.
Yeah, I do sincerely hope that they put a headphone jack, that they put a cable release capability in there. If they don't, then they should be able to make it £450, something like that, if it's going to be really stripped down. The Z50 is already a very good price for what it is.
Yes.
Considering the image quality is on par with the D500.
The same sensor.
However, I think if it can be around the £600 price mark with the lens, that would probably be ideal.
I think eventually, within, let's say, maybe a year or so, it will go down to maybe 700 and 600 eventually. But then my question is, obviously, with Z9 announcement, it makes sense for them to release Z90, which would be a D500 effectively version, top of the range professional in DX range. Now, there are 2 points about this. Obviously, it's going to be a low volume because it's going to be an expensive camera. So it probably will cost more than Z5.
Which makes sense because the D500 does cost more than the D750.
So here's my question is, Nikon said that we expecting to have low volume overall, but higher margins. From low volume and high margins, Z90 makes sense.
Yes.
Because it's going to be expensive camera, probably at least 1,500. I think it's probably could go to about 2,000.
Yeah.
So it's going to be high margin item with latest technology.
Yeah, if they take a similar autofocus system to the Z9 and similar low light performance, but with the DX crop and the limitations that DX give you when in low light.
Hopefully updated D500 sensors. So not the same 20 megapixels, but a big jump.
Yes, exactly. Then that could be very interesting. The autofocus is going to be the key thing because there are a lot of wildlife photographers specifically, probably also sports photographers as well, that buy a DX camera like the D500 because of that crop factor. So it would have to be enough of a jump and an improvement in autofocus for people to move from the D500 over to mirrorless finally for that sort of work. Without the £7,000 price ticket, approximately, is what we're expecting.
So then we will have 3 DX models in DX lineup. So you got Z30, which is, let's say, under £500. Then we have Z50,
under 800.
Under 800. Well, I would call it under 1,000, I guess. So just, I guess if the new model comes out. So because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to have 2 models really close to each other. Because if Z90 price at £2,000, then you have a huge gap.
Very true.
So let's say £500 Z30, £1,000, let's say Z50 Mark II, and Z90 would be equivalent of, let's say, Z9 in DX form.
Yeah, so about 1,500.
Do you think they can do 1,500?
No, I think that it's probably closer to 2,000, which is the same price as roughly as a Z6 II is right now.
And this is the question to the public. So we have quite a lot of comments saying that Nikon needs to release D500 Z version, but priced at £2,000 or let's say $1,895, would you buy it? Because it's always I want this camera, but then another point is, it's too expensive, I'm not going to buy it. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the question I have. So would you want to spend, let's say, £1,900 for Z flagship DX camera?
It's a good question. Please let us know. Drop us a comment. We would be fascinated to hear your views. Now, on the full frame bodies.
So we have Z5, which is slowly climbing down to.
It's climbing down? Yeah.
Well, it's climbing, but down. So it's a roller coaster of emotions because it's currently £1,074. So this camera, for me, still doesn't exist.
You want it to be discounted by £75, don't you? So
definitely, definitely, because I feel like it's going to come out soon.
Yeah,
it's going to come out soon, but I know it exists. We need about 9 months for this to happen, and then we'll see Z5.
Yeah,
and that's effectively D750, D600 equivalent. So I think it's going to be a good seller at $999. Or let's say 1,100 to 1,200 with a lens, so 24 to 50.
Sure.
So we've got this. Now we also have Z6 and Z7 Mark II, which are effectively very, very similar cameras, everything but the sensor and the AF. And the AF difference is very small. So the sensor, I would say, is the main thing really there.
And the video.
And the video, but again, the video is very close.
Yes.
So the question is with Z8's release, which is effectively, we would call it D850, replacement.
Yeah.
Where does Z7 and Z6 sit? Because I don't think that they need both cameras to be out there. Because you got Z5 to cover Z6 range, this kind of 24 megapixel photographer's camera.
But yes, but no. Because if the Z8 is going to be super high resolution, and talking more than 50 megapixels. Imagine if I know that it has existed for a while, but for example, let's say 100 megapixel, doesn't need to be that much.
Yes.
But something even higher resolution, then the Z7 still has a place for people that want that extra special quality without necessarily spending £4,500.
I feel you, and that makes sense for the current models that's already out.
Yes.
And we're not touching Z6 and Z7 generation 1 because, again, they designed to be a cheaper product, but basically exactly the same. So you got generation 1 and generation 2, the same as you can buy previous generation iPhone right now for less than the current generation iPhone.
Yeah.
So, but the question is, when Z7 Mark III is released, or let's say Z6 Mark III, so Z6 Mark III will not have 24 megapixel sensor, in my opinion,
You think
because
it'll be more?
24 megapixels is too small, as we discussed. So it's not too small right now, but with new cameras coming out.
Yes, and with 8K.
Exactly, shift to 100 megapixels and then 60 megapixel cameras, and we potentially will see a release of 80 megapixel cameras from Canon. So 24 becomes too small. So, and that's where you have Z5 nicely occupying this space.
Sure.
Then Z6 and Z7 too doesn't have sense. It doesn't make sense because I think they need to be merged together.
Sure.
Because Z7 Mark III then can come out at 46 megapixel sensor.
Yes.
Or maybe new 50 megapixel sensor or something, and combine both. So suddenly you have Z8, which is very high resolution studio camera, let's say, top of range professional expensive camera. And then you have some sort of Z7, Z6 equivalent that we will see around 46 megapixels.
Okay, so then it will come down to having something available at different price brackets because not everybody's going to want to stretch to £4,500. Similarly, not everyone's going to want to stretch to £3,000. If the Z7 Mark III came out, it's easily going to be over £3,000. The Z7 II is £3,000. So then there would still need to be something available as a happy medium between the Z5 price point of under £1,000.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? So I still think that there's a space for them.
Don't you think they'd be too similar and they aim for pretty much the same market?
Yes. How Nikon do it is going to be a great
That's
mystery.
A puzzle for you, Nikon.
This is your riddle and conundrum. But I do think that there is a price bracket there between the sort of 1,500 to 2,500 price point. That's quite a big difference between those two price brackets.
So then it looks to me that instead of, let's say, keeping all in the same family, price point wise, Nikon and all other manufacturers like Sony, they create an extra space in a higher bracket.
Yeah. So they're expecting people to spend, if they need to spend more, and then therefore creating more brackets, if you like.
So low volume, high margin. That's what it is.
That's the theme for this week.
But if you think about it, okay, so let's say Z9, let's call it 7K, shall we?
Sure.
Plus minus a grand. And then Z8's probably not cheaper than 4K. Yeah. Do you think we'll have 3.5 figure? Probably not.
I doubt it. Not with the resolution that we're expecting.
So effectively, instead of, let's say, if the 850 came out at 3.5, so that 8 will come out about 4, maybe 4.2. And then we need cameras like Z7 and Z6 to fill those gaps.
Yeah, where the sort of 3,000 price mark, and then the similarly 1.5 to 2,000 price mark. And then you've got your Z5 below. I mean, a lot of people will argue, well, why would I spend £3,000 if I can get the same quality cheaper? Those differences really do have to be made very clear. The Z6 has always been, from what I can see, always been touted as the cinematographer's camera. They've always made it with the raw video capability, with the way that the Z6 records, with compatibility with external monitors, etc. That's kind of been touted as this is the cinematographer's camera, and then your Z7, Z7 II have basically become the fine art photography, street photography, portrait, landscape photographer's camera.
So what we see now is actually, if you want the latest technology, not just from Nikon, from all other companies, be prepared to pay more than what you paid, let's say, 5 years ago for similar technology, so it was new at the time, 5 years ago. So if you paid for G50 3,500, you probably will pay something like 4 to 4.5 for new Z8 camera.
Yeah.
So the shift, the quite a drastic shift, what I see now is, yes, you have the latest technology on top, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But the increase in the prices.
But that's the same with any technology. You look at the cost of our phones now have gone up dramatically. The cost of a computer now, aside from
that's true,
Apple's latest offering, which is actually quite reasonable, the little mini. But
but let's talk about like first iPhone. Was it about £600?
If that, I think it was 500, which was a lot at the time. And
now we're paying roughly about 1,000 plus for the Pro version, isn't it? Something like this. Yeah.
And if you want more storage, then you've got to pay more. The same with, for example, You know, when I originally bought my MacBook Pro in 2015, it was £1,000. To buy a MacBook Pro now, which has the similar like top of the range specs, I'm looking at 1,500 plus.
So what you say is it's the inflation is the thing, but on top of it, we are progressing technology, but it becomes more expensive to manufacture because a lot of people think, oh, they can do the latest technology nowadays cheaper. Well, they can't.
No, they can't. But in a few years' time, what's latest now will become cheaper. So obviously, if I were to buy a 2015, let's say, processor speed MacBook now, it wouldn't cost me £1,000. Probably cost me about £500. But it wouldn't be the latest technology anymore.
Unless it's a video card, then you're mining, and you can't buy any for RRP.
There you go.
Interesting. So, it's interesting movement because a lot of people say, well, no, I paid, let's say, £200 for my Nikon F at the time, you know, and D6 now is 6.2.
Yeah, but then conversely, look at how much the D1 and the D2 cost now, and versus how much they cost when they first come out. So it works in both ways completely. Yeah,
I feel like that 8K technology is a bit too early. You know, I think that we could easily wait for another year, and of course, obviously, videographers can benefit with it. I feel like that 4K was good enough. You know, there are not so many outlets where we can actually produce native 8K footage and watch it.
No.
So, you know, I personally think that maybe because technology came so fast, and it's a big shift, it's a big jump. Normally we would be quite slow in, you know, upgrading from year to year. 8K shift becomes quite a big jump in there. But I personally feel like that maybe at the moment, if you feel like 8K is too much and high resolution is too much, and you're happy with your 24 megapixel camera, well, give it maybe another year, give it a couple more years, and then you can pick up, you know, the high resolution camera for a lot less.
Yes, exactly. This week on our review segment, we have a video by Moose Peterson.
Ooh.
His video is entitled "The Nikon 24-70. Why are there two in my kit?"
We shot a very similar video that last week, which is going to come out in about a year. But we've done the same thing as him. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Spoiler alert. It will come out and you will see it. So is he reviewing the f4 and the 2.8?
Yes, and he says, well, I actually have both. And we came to the same conclusion.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally still think the f4 is fine for me. But anyway, that's just for my humble tastes.
And I agree with you, unless you shoot weddings and events when those things, you know, will come to life again.
One day. And then I'll be able to pay for the 2.8 version because I'll actually be getting paid work. So next up, we have a Nikon Z6 II and Z7 II wildlife photography review on YouTube. That
by
was
Steve Perry.
By Steve Perry. Good old Steve Perry. We like him very much. He knows his stuff and he uses... Thanks for that.
It's good.
And he uses the Zs for wildlife photography. So if you've ever wondered whether or not a 6.2 or a 7.2 would be appropriate for wildlife photography, Steve is the man to watch.
Yes, remember that because autofocus, a lot of people were saying, I can't figure out Nikon's autofocus. There's going to be a couple more things we're going to recommend you this week, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That is to do with autofocus on Nikon Z cameras. The next review is by, well, it's a Z7 review, Mark II, by DP Review. So they published several pages, you know, and they said that Z7 Mark II is a very capable all-rounder, boosted by addition of twin card slots and the option to air the battery grid. It offers superb image quality, solid autofocus, and good video specs. But it's only really a slightly lower price that makes it stand out from a very competitive group. Thoroughly likable.
It's a thoroughly likable camera. It's like talking about, you know, your colleague. He's thoroughly likable.
He's not the best, but he's thoroughly likable.
What they like: excellent image quality, dynamic range. ISO 64 can give an IQ advantage over peers. Good video quality and features such as, good quality and features for such a high resolution camera. Excellent ergonomics and well-placed controls. Effective in-body image stabilization. Decent battery life with some backward capability. USB charging and separate charger included. Dual card slots provide flexibility. Auto shutter Auto shutter mode avoids the need to manually switch in different situations. The SD-XQD CF Express compatibility and the viewfinder is detailed. The viewfinder is definitely a strong point, I think, in all the Z cameras over the competition from what I've seen. What didn't they like?
AF features not as well integrated as in its rivals.
Okay.
AF tracking not as dependable as best systems. Eye autofocus still appears to fractionally front focus. This I don't agree with, because with my extensive testing of Z6, I didn't have those issues.
Maybe it's not the latest firmware that they tested potentially.
I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't agree with this. Battery life behind the best of its peers. Okay. Tilt and screen not as flexible as two-way tilt or fully articulated. Again, that could matter for some people. I personally didn't notice that. Not much card slots demand purchase of multiple formats. Now, on this one, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have SD cards already.
I think that SD cards are prevalent in most things, so having an SD card is not an issue. And XQD is obviously a necessity now due to the speeds of recording.
Imagine have two XQD or CF format slots, then it becomes a very expensive purchase.
It's going to cost so much more than having an SD card, which costs next to nothing, as your backup or your overflow.
Viewfinder isn't as high resolution as the best of its peers, requires external recorder for its video quality, so 10-bit log requires Ninja or Blackmagic. Now, a lot of those nitpicks, basically, they say that more expensive cameras from other manufacturers do better. Nikon, however, is priced lower.
Yes, so you have to kind of weigh up. And also, if you've obviously got all your Nikon glass already, then the Z7 II is a no-brainer in comparison to going for another manufacturer.
Exactly. So obviously Z9 and Z8 will address those issues and probably will be priced competitively with other brands.
Exactly.
Obviously, those cameras are not out yet, so that's, I guess, the main kind of point where, let's say, we would like them to be out. But generally, what they say is thoroughly likable and it's priced very well.
Yeah, competitively. For your weekend read and watch segment, we have some education for you.
Oh, let's do some education.
Nikon School published your essential guide to autofocus. It's an article about autofocus on DSLRs or Z series cameras. So have a read of that.
Okay. Tom Hogan, who we love, released a complete guide to Nikon Z6 and Z7 II cameras. You can purchase it directly from him.
Yes.
It's 1,100 pages.
I thought you were going to say 1,100 pounds. That's very expensive.
No, it's $29.99 directly from his website in PDF form. I own his D800 and D850 books, and they're thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I haven't read all 900 pages for those books. I read about 50, but those 50, they packed all the information that I needed to learn about autofocus system, the way the 14-bit RAW image works, etc., etc. So he's a good chap. Go buy things from him, just like from Becky's books on Amazon.
Next week, we're going to have a little picture up of Tom Hogan at the back and we'll just point to him every time.
With a halo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I don't sell anything, not yet.
We're not sponsored.
Absolutely, but I'm thinking about it.
If you're interested. I will also mention that we stock David Bush guides because we can get them over here in the UK. They are published by Rocky Nook, and the Z6 II and Z7 II books will be out in May this year. So
they're the real books, physical books.
Yes, so if you are interested in one of those, keep an eye on our website. We will put those up as soon as we get them into stock. All
right, the next one up is Clubhouse for photographers. Social media as we know it is about to change. What is Clubhouse, Becky?
I don't know.
Neither me. So
I
read this article.
Memes, right? I see memes and I don't understand them. I'm like, what is...
Well, it's a new social media platform that everyone is raving about.
Okay.
I have no idea about this, so I thought I better read the article by Petapixel, and I recommend this to you as well, our listeners.
So it says, many photographers have had the same reaction that I did upon hearing about yet another new social media app hitting the radar. A yawn and a roll of the eyes. I was very close to doing that myself. I'm just trying to understand, what is it?
While you're doing this, Roblox also had its IPO on NASDAQ. Just think about that.
I am thinking about it, seriously.
Yeah.
The amount of money that my kids spend on Roblox is like all of their pocket money, birthday money, anything. It goes into Roblox. It is ridiculous. When I looked when I said to Zach, how many Robux have you spent since you started the game in 2016 or whatever? And it was like some astronomical amount of money.
So effectively, his education for the next 10 years.
It's like $1,000.
Wow.
On just like things. And obviously it's like a few quid here, a few quid there. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's so depressing.
So it's up, isn't it?
But the beauty of Roblox is that they have a thing called Roblox Studio where you can design your own games and then you can make money from them. So you can develop and create your own games, put them on Roblox, and then other people can play them.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And welcome back to Nikon Report, where we talk Roblox and Clubhouse.
Hi, Greg. Next up, the World Photography Organization has released the list of photographers chosen as finalists and shortlisted in the professional competition for the Sony World Photography Awards 2021. Now, just to clarify, this is a Sony Photography Awards. It's not taken by Sony cameras. It's just photography awards.
And you don't need to own a Sony camera to see the nominees.
The nominees.
The nominees.
So if you are interested to have a look at some exceptional world photography there, then do click on the link in the description box.
Fantastic. And if you want to see more exceptional photography, nominees were recently announced for the 64th annual WordPress photo contest as well. So go to that website, check out the finalists.
Yep. We also have the Absolute Beginner's Guide to Film Photography, the Sunny 16 Rule, or How to Expose with No Meter. That's by DP Review.
Okay, I have no idea about this, so tell me more.
So there is a sort of guiding principle that if it's a sunny day, then you would shoot at f/16, and then you would set your shutter speed to as close to your film stock as possible, and you should get a near to perfect exposure.
Okay, so if I've got 400 ISO speed, then I shoot at 400s of a second?
Yeah, although most film cameras that don't have meters don't have 400th of a second.
Okay.
So ideally, you'd probably go 500th of a second.
Interesting, okay.
But thereabouts. So there is in that article, in case you are interested, different settings for other weather conditions. It's called Sunny 16, but you've also got sort of like overcast F8 and things like that. So there's a whole table there. It's a great article, particularly if you're new to film photography and you don't have a meter, or if you want to sort of practice metering just off the top of your head.
How interesting. I shall ask myself, shall I use a Sunny 16 or shall I use an overcast F8 setting today?
Exactly. All right, then we have a video, The History of Fashion Photography, a documentary by Fashion Industry Broadcast on YouTube.
It's 1 hour video and talks about history of fashion photography.
So if you've got a spare hour, then do give that a look.
Well, thanks for joining us today. It's Konstantin Becky again. Where can we find you?
You can find on the internet, Google my name. No, you can, don't do that. You can find me on Instagram at Rebecca_Danese or on my website, rebeccadanese.com.
Fantastic. I'm on internet as well. So my website is konstantinkoshkin.co.uk and Instagram is at konstantinkoshkin.
Nice and easy. Thank you very much for watching and or listening. Please do give us a like, a subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, give us a follow and perhaps leave us a review. We'd very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.